Jesus, light the first love fire in me again. I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in love with you again. Back to the start where it was all about one thing. I wanna fall in love with you again. Wanna fall in love. And I remember when I couldn't wait to tell someone. I was lost within the joy and gratitude for all that you've done. Let me be thankful again, Lord. Jesus, light the first love fire in me again. I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in love with you again. Back to the start where it was all about one thing. I wanna fall in love with you again. With you again. Bring me back to my first love again. Jesus, Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire. Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire. Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire. Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire again. I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in, I wanna fall in love with you again. Back to the start where it was all about one. I wanna fall in love with you Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire. Jesus, light. Come and be my one desire. Jesus, light the first love fire. Come and be my one desire. was all about what I wanna fall in love with you again. Back to the start where was all about what I wanna fall in love with you again. As we wait, seek your face. Come and make your throne upon our praise. Here in this place, have your way. The moment that we see you, we are changed. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Holy ground. Here, not by power, not by might, but only by the cross we come alive. Here.
Well, good morning, Watermark Church. Listen, we're so glad to gather with you online today. So whether you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube or on our website, listen, we're so glad that you're with us this morning. My name's Evan Mack, and I'm the youth pastor here at Watermark Church. And
Yep, my name's Laren, lead pastor, and just we're glad to have you joining us. That you can be there, we're here, but we still have this chance to gather together. So we're just thankful for that.
Absolutely. So, hey, listen, if you're joining us today and maybe this is your first time, maybe you're just you stumbled upon the live stream. I know I've done it. Live streams are going on Facebook and all of a sudden you just see it pop up and you go and click in and go, oh, I wonder what this is. And maybe you're joining us like that today. We would love to get to know you. We'd love for you to get to know us. And so the easiest way to do that and to take your first step here at Watermark is by texting the word new to 586-600-8200. Again, that is new to 586-600-8200.
Yeah, and if you haven't done so yet, we'd encourage you to download the Church Center app and whatever. If you use iPhone or Android, it's in both of the stores there. For the apps, I don't even know what they're called. Is it Google Play?
Google Play and the App Store.
Okay, Google Play in the App Store. Thank you, Evan. I got to go to the young guy to help me out. But
That's what I'm here for.
Download the app. It's really easy. You can it searches for your address, and you can click what church you're at. You can hit Watermark, and then it has all the things there at the bottom that you can instantly connect to. It has register for events, giving, groups, all those type of things. It just makes it easy. I love that it's just right there. In fact, I know, Evan, you had a ton of kids use the app to sign up for winter retreat this fall.
Super easy.
Or, winter
retreat.
It is fall, but they signed up for winter retreat.
Yes. So in the fall, they signed up for the retreat that's in winter.
Yeah, that's how it is.
But it was great because then I didn't you and I were talking about it in first service. Back a couple years ago, if without Church Center app, I'd be chasing people around trying to go, hey, have you paid for the trip? Here's a few ways you can do so, and trying to figure out if they can do it through either giving me money or Venmo or whatever.
It's the worst.
We just have it. It's all in one place, so it's super easy. So
I was notorious for people would give me checks for their student for whatever events as a youth pastor, and I'd forget it, leave it in my pocket, take my clothes home, wash them, and I'd have to go back and hey, I washed your check. Can I get another one? It's the worst. So,
listen,
Church Center.
I imagine, I know that you were talking in first service, the story of having a bunch of money in your pocket. I can imagine knowing church situations. I've ended up with too many times where they have event signups and it's they give it to you in majority singles.
Yeah.
And you're just Now you've got this wad in your pocket of cash. It's like for an event. It's just like, what do you do with this now? So it's all easy. We got super off
Sorry,
topic.
sidetrack, but
oh my goodness,
it's important stuff.
Yes.
But
So Church Center app.
Yes,
It's
that's the
awesome.
point of it all. But hey, real quick, after this morning's service, immediately following when we dismiss, when I say leave a lasting mark, we'd love for you to stick around for Next Steps. And Next Steps here at Watermark is just a short little class where you get to discover what your next steps are and help you just say, hey, you know, I want to move forward. You know, I've been watching online for a little while. I want to get plugged in. I want to get connected. And so we do that and then really talk about who we are as Watermark, what it means to be part of our church and our community. So we'd love to have you stick around right after the service for that.
Yeah. And so, hey, there's a few announcements that we have that are coming up in the life of our church. Actually, the first one we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah.
And that is our Operation Christmas Child. Listen, we want to bless some kids who are in some areas where they don't, you know, Christmas, like the way that we know it isn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Christmas that we know, which, you know, obviously is focused around, you know, the coming of Jesus. And so that is the premise. But then outside of that, we get to like give gifts the way that God gave the gift of his son. And so we get to pack these boxes, which I see an incoming box. Look at you.
Just like that.
Just like that.
That's it.
It's a box, a shoe box, and basically we pack it with non-perishable items. And listen, we've been talking about it for a while. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people know what it is. And so, listen, they're due next week.
Yeah.
Like, so you got to bring in your box for next Sunday, drop it off either here, or if you're online, maybe you're a ways away from here, and you are, you know, want to figure out how you can get involved, pack a shoebox. You can look it up on Samaritan Purse's website where you can find a list of what goes in the box or what you should put in or suggestions. Or
Yep.
It's even got in there locations near you where you can drop off your box. And so make sure to go check that out. And listen, like, it's going to be, it's just such a great and easy way to bless some, you know, kids in need across the world and just kind of show that somebody's thinking of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody's thinking about them.
Yeah, so we have that, and then also we have our Christmas for Anchor Bay. I dropped the box. I got to use my hand. We have our Christmas for Anchor Bay event coming up December 11th, and really this is a partnership from our entire community, other organizations, other churches, really wanting to make a difference this Christmas for families that are in need. And so parents will be able to come and shop for presents for their kids at I think there's a couple dollars that they give to be part of that event, and then that money then gets donated away, but they can also pick up toiletries, pajamas, hats, gloves, even food. And so that food aspect, that's where we need your help. That's the one part that we're in charge of, that we're providing non-perishable food items. Families come in, they get the presents for the kids, but we'll also give them a box of food. So we need you to donate food. So if you can drop it off here at the church on a Sunday, we'd love to have you do that. If you can't, message us on Facebook and we can kind of maybe even coordinate that with you and figure out how we can pick it up, drop it off maybe during the week. But that food is a huge component to making sure that these families just get the Christmas that any of us would want. And so we just want to help them out. And you can also volunteer if you go to foranchorbay.com or Church Center app. It's there too. You can volunteer to serve in this event. So we'd love to have you join us for that.
So I got two last things before we head onto the stage. The first of which is, hey, maybe you've been attending with us online for quite some time, and you're looking to figure out what's next for you, where your next step is. And I have a super easy way to take that next step, to go into the next phase of life. And with us here at Watermark, the first is actually easy. Stay on after service for our, time next steps. Wow,
You're struggling.
That.
I knew
it.
it.
Oh my goodness.
You got it. You're okay.
The other one
Let's
is
move forward.
Yeah, we'll get there. So the next one is actually by texting the word next to 586-600-8200. And so that's an easy way to get and take those next steps for you here at Watermark Church. So, hey, we're going to throw it out to Derek on the stage here and the band to lead us in worship. So listen, set aside your distractions, grab your family, get close on the couch, get set, and listen, we're going to see you after service for next steps, and then have a great week after that. But listen, we're going to throw it to Derek on the stage for worship this morning.
All right, well, good morning, church. Why don't you stand this morning as we worship together in this place?
Silence is the end. Let like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. We cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. We cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. We praise you.
Amen. Again, just so glad to be here worshiping with all of you, whether you're here in this room or whether you're joining us online. It's just going to be a great morning. We're starting a new series this week called Reset, and I just know that through this series, through the topics that we're going to discuss, that there's some opportunity there just for some really cool things to happen and just for some awareness to be made. Can I get an amen in a sense for an extra hour of sleep, right? That was good. And I think it's a no-brainer that as soon as you're going to have an extra hour of sleep, your child knows that, and they do everything in their power to keep you from it. But that's okay. So, but I was reminded this morning, as we were thinking about having this extra hour of sleep last night, I was like, oh, it's actually only 7 o'clock. Oh, it's actually only 8 o'clock. I was reminded, though, that there are so many times in our life we just kind of feel like worn out. And I guess when I woke up this morning, I guess I felt a little bit more rested because of that extra hour. But I could probably have used an extra day of sleep just to kind of catch up too. But I was reminded of this thing in that thought process. And that is that our true rest comes from Him. And with that being said, I thought of it from the perspective of, a night where we gained an extra hour of sleep, maybe we feel a little bit more refreshed. Those moments, those times where we'll be pressed into God and we let the presence of God do something in our lives. Those are the moments where we really will feel refreshed and restored. And, I was just thinking about that this morning and just how applicable it is as we go into this series, this idea of hitting reset. But maybe even just this morning, whatever you may have walked in with, you need a little bit of a reset. You just need a little bit of a refresh. And maybe that hour, maybe it felt good, but you need it in a slightly different way. And so I just wanted to give you just a moment to kind of reflect with eyes closed in this place, just to take a minute of just setting aside everything and just saying, you know what, God, we are here this morning. We're going to press into you. And I pray that refreshing, that sense of restoration, that sense of just a little bit of newness would come from Him. So just for this moment, just this morning, just you and Him take that time to reflect. God, we come to you this morning. God, I pray that we would, in this place, we would recognize who we're coming to. God, I pray that we would recognize who you are. God, I just pray that we would be able this morning to just rest in that truth of who you are. God, we come to you, we lift you up. God, we give you praise in this place this morning. Praise your name. Amen.
You are here, you're moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are way maker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are way maker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, you're touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship and I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, yes, I worship you. For you are waymaker, miracle, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Yes. Waiting, miracle, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Yes, you are. Waiting, miracle, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That's who you are. That is 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 who you are. Light in the darkness, my God.
Sing that again. You are the way maker.
You are waymaker, miracle, promise keep. Yes, that is who you are. That's who you are. That is who you are. Yes. Even when I don't see it working, that is who you are. That is who you are. Yes, yes, God. I love you, Lord. You know your mercy never fails. And all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake until I lay my head, and I will sing of the goodness of God. Let's sing this out this morning. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the
Let's just sing this together.
And all my life you have been faithful.
Come on, declare it to him this morning.
All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am made, I will sing of the goodness of God.
You know, I just wanted to share one more quick thing this morning as we continue, and you know, this next song that we're about to do, you know, it refers to, or we sing about, or we worship about this idea of revival. And you know, I was reminded as I was just kind of, you know, digging a little bit and kind of looking some things up, that revival can mean, you know, a handful of different things from the standpoint of like a larger body or like an individual, or and I felt no other way to even just tie in what we referenced earlier, like this idea of renewal. And actually, that one of the definitions of revival is this idea of renewal and restoration. And you know, as we go in even the next few moments after we worship here for a little bit longer, and as we hear from the Word, that's kind of the way that this whole series is going to lend itself, just this idea of being renewed. And you know, I just think about how important it is for us to remind ourselves that there's no better place to draw that renewal or draw that refreshing from. And what that can mean, obviously this song even talks a little bit or sings a little bit about this, the trickle effect that it can have. But if we as individuals, if we choose to make this decision to let ourselves be renewed in mind and heart, what it could really mean in the big picture of things is just something so great, something so powerful. And just as we continue to worship this morning, I just wanted to share, before we went into this song, this idea again. Yes, revival, it's this thing that we want to happen. And even as the song says, but it's this idea of just even in the midst of this moment, of this time together this morning, just asking God for a little bit of renewal and refreshing in our own lives, in our own hearts, and our own minds. So as we sing this song, I would just pray that would be on your hearts as we worship.
Seen what you can do, oh God of wonders. Your power has no end. The things you've done before, in greater measure, you will do again. 'Cause there's no prison wall you can't break through, no mountain you can't move. All things are possible. There's no broken body you can't raise, no soul that you can't save. All things are possible. Darkest night, you can light it up. You revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble, hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken your people, come awaken the city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble, hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Darkest night, you can light it up, you can light it up. Oh God of revival, let hope arise. Death is overcome, you've already won. Oh God of revival. Come on, don't hold back, church. Sing this out. Come awaken your people. Come awaken the city. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. Hear the chains hit the ground. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken your people, come awaken the city. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble, hear the chains hit the ground. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out.
It's so easy to talk about revival and just have it be a moment where we sing this song and one that's very powerful and moving, and then just kind of leave that moment and move on to the next. It's so easy to kind of just to go through the motions step to step to step, but then we reach this moment where we sing these songs, singing a song saying, come awaken your city, come awaken your people, and then we go and we move to the next thing. We move to the next moment. We leave that feeling, we leave that presence, we leave that place. My prayer for you today is that when we sing about revival, that it would begin with you. That when we sing about revival, that it begins within us. Not as an abstract concept that, hey, God, do something in our city, do something in this county, do something in this state, in this country, in this world, but let it begin with me. Let it begin within me. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to lift our hands to the sky. This is an act of surrender. In war, when you surrender, when you give up, you raise your hands. You wave the white flag, and what we're doing this morning is we're saying, God, we surrender to you. That when we call for revival, our surrender means you begin it within us. So we're going to pray, all hands are raised, all eyes closed in this room. God, our prayers for revival, these songs that we sing, may they reach your ears, and as they do, God, may you begin revival within us. May you begin change within us. May your heart transform ours. God, as our prayer is that strongholds would be shaken, that chains would drop to the floor, the things that bind us in, that the enemy has control over, Lord, may they be no longer. We surrender to you. Do what you want to do in us. Do what you want to do through us. May revival begin here in me. God, our prayer is that we want to know you. We want to walk with you. We want to be transformed by you. May it begin within me. God, we lift this up with sincere hearts. And everyone said, amen. You may be seated. Well, church, it's been so great to worship this morning. I don't know about you, but my goodness, the spirit of worship, just the presence of God in this place was so strong this morning. So I have a few things that I want to let you know of as we continue to go through service, and the first of which is our Church Center app. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you need to. It's amazing. You can find out all of our events, our group locations, and group times. You can register for events. I know that we just registered all of our students for Winter Retreat, and so registration went through the app. There's so much that you can use it for. You can tithe. There's literally, it's amazing. If you want to be involved in the church, it's essential. It's fantastic to have. So make sure you download that on any of the app stores, whether it's Google Play, the App Store for Apple. It's there. Make sure you go, check it out, download it, and then search Watermark Church, and you'll find us. So the next announcement I have is one that we've been talking about for a couple weeks, and that's Operation Christmas Child. Listen, we've been talking about packing the shoe boxes, putting that all together, but now the deadline for turning them in is coming close. It's actually next Sunday. So if you have been planning to pack a box, or maybe even this Sunday, you're like, oh, I would love to. You have a week. So go to the store, pick up the stuff that you need, that you want to pack in the boxes. If you have any questions about what to put in the box or where you can drop it off, if you're like online and you're not here in the area and you're looking for somewhere to drop it in, you can look on Samaritan Purse's website. They have all of the list of things and suggestions that you could put in the box, along with locations near you to drop it off. So make sure you go check that out and get those boxes in by next Sunday. The next announcement I have is for Christmas for Anchor Bay. One of the things that we've been kind of tasked by as a church is actually donating food so that we can bless some families in need this season, so that we can begin to just pour out love and show that there's somebody thinking about them and caring about them in the season where, honestly, the world feels like it's closing in and all of the walls feel like they're just coming in on us. I know those seasons, those Christmas, those holiday seasons where nothing seems to go right and you're just caught between a rock and a hard place. Listen, we want to bless those families and just kind of pour out our love for them. So listen, we're bringing in a bunch of non-perishable food, canned food, box food stuff that you can put in the lobby as you enter the building to the right, and so that we can bless some families through this season and just, like I said, show that, hey, there's a church, there's a family that cares about you, that sees where you're at and wants to make a difference in your life. And so we want to be able to bless them. So make sure you bring in your canned food, your box food, those non-perishable items, so that we can drop those in the box right there. So, hey, we're going to transition into a time of giving. And listen, we're just so thankful as a church for your generosity. The impact that we are able to make in our community could not be done if it wasn't for you. And so there's a few ways, if you came prepared to give this morning, a few ways you can do so. The first of which is right as you leave this room, there's a drop box to your right that you can drop your physical offering into. Otherwise, you can go through our website or through the Church Center app. So listen, we're going to begin a new series this week called The Reset. I cannot wait. It's been one that we've been talking about for a few weeks, and I've been super excited about. So as we prepare our hearts to receive from God's word, why don't you guys check this out?
That was quick. I want you to do something this morning. I just want you to take just a moment to look at the pace that you're just trying to maintain right now. That when it comes to, what's going on at home and what's going on at work, what's going on within your relationships, the responsibilities that you've committed to in this season, when you think about the pace that you're trying to maintain, like right now, could you do this forever? Could you maintain this pace forever? And then maybe the better question, do you want to? Like, do you really want to maintain the pace that you're running at right now? Would you want to maintain that forever? And here's the truth. I think we'd all like to say yes. Because all the things that we have going on in our schedules right now, they're important to us. They're important to the people that are important to us. All the things that we're involved in, they have a place and a priority, and you can't even imagine them not being a part of your life or not being involved in that or not having that on your schedule. But here's the thing. I think if we were willing to push past the pressure that we all put on ourselves and push past maybe the image that we want others to see of us, I think when it comes to maybe the pace that we're running at right now, I think many of us might actually say, you know what, no. I don't think I can maintain this. In fact, I think if we could really slow down and settle things a little bit and focus on some of the more important parts of our lives, I think we'd say, you know what, no, like deep down, right now, the pace that I'm running, it's too much, it's too crazy right now with this season and my workload and my family schedule, the relationships that I'm trying to maintain, just work and family and dating life, all the responsibilities that I have. How many of you would say, you know what? And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but how many of you would say, you know what, I can't keep this up? But how often do you convince yourself, oh, it's okay? It's okay because this is just a season. It's going to get better once I get through this or once we get past this. But see, if your busy season, if it has no ending, it's not a season. It's actually your life. And here's what I think is interesting. That remember the spring of 2020, that we all had this incredible opportunity to hit reset on some of the most important areas of our lives, our schedules, our finances, our relationships, and many other areas. And I remember hearing from so many during that time when so many things were kind of shut down. We're doing family dinners again, and we're doing some things as a family that we haven't done in years, and this season's tough for us, but we've actually started to do some things that we just always wanted to do. But I remember it wasn't long before we were right back into a pre-COVID pace or a pre-COVID plan for our finances or a pre-COVID commitment level. And we've made excuses and said, well, we missed out on this last year, or we didn't get to do these things, or it's been this long since we've done that. And my heart, as we're headed into this holiday season, where we might just be tempted to schedule more and fit in more and do more and spend more and eat more and party more, and then head into 2022 at a pace that we can't maintain and a pace that we can't sustain. Like my heart is I want to prevent that. And so before things get too crazy and too out of control and too busy and too overwhelming, I just felt like it was a good season to hit reset. To make sure that we've got some of the rhythms and the schedules and the finances and our relationships in a place not only where we can, manage them in a healthy way, but actually we can find fulfillment in them and the kind of fulfillment that our Heavenly Father would desire for us as we're headed into this new year. That hopefully we can have a foundation that we need that then, I think, opens up the door for God to do even more in our hearts and our lives and our finances and our relationship. Because here's the truth for so many people right now. I believe that many of us are overwhelmed and overcommitted and overworked, doing exactly what we thought we wanted to do with their lives. That people, they've got the job that they always wanted, the family they always wanted, they're married, number of kids, the house they wanted, all the cars, the toys, everything they wanted, but yet having it, they find themselves overwhelmed and overcommitted and overworked. But if that's the truth, then what do we do? How do we get back to, that magical season where we seem to have extra time and do some things that we long to do for such a long time? Well, to point us in the right direction, I want to take a look at the book of Psalm. And it's in the Old Testament. And this particular psalm was written by Moses. Now, Moses, this is the Old Testament Moses, the parting of the Red Sea Moses, the Ten Commandments Moses. And so there's this psalm that Moses wrote, and it's in this collection of songs. And what we know about Moses is that in some ways Moses had 4 different lives, or 4 different seasons in his life. He was born Jewish, But through a series of events, he grew up in the Pharaoh of Egypt, grew up in his household. And as a child, Moses would have had everything. I mean, he would have had the 85-inch TV. He probably would have had a pony as a kid. And probably when he turned 16, he got like a brand new chariot. I mean, everything was going well for Moses in this first stage of his life. But at some point, he fell out of favor with with Pharaoh's family. He murdered an Egyptian. Now, he did it not just to randomly kill someone, but he was protecting a fellow Jew. But then you move to the next part of Moses' life. Now he's a shepherd. And man, a shepherd, those are some long, boring days. Right? You get up in the morning, you take your sheep out, and you sit and you watch. And this was 40 years of Moses' life, all day, every day. I mean, 40 years. I mean, this is it. But then you move into the third stage or third season in Moses' life, and Moses ends up back in Egypt. And this is the season where he's like, to Pharaoh, let my people go, and the plagues and the river of blood. I mean, this is that kind of, epic season for Moses. But then he moves into this fourth part. And now Moses finds himself, he's a leader of a nation. He's taking the Jewish people, the Israelites, out of Egypt, leading them to the promised land. But it wasn't long before the people started complaining. I was saying, Moses, come on, we don't even know where we're going. What's God doing in this season for us? Moses, we don't even know what's happening next. And so God basically tells Moses, you're going to lead these people around in a circle in the wilderness until they all die. I mean, what a life, right? And that's how his life ends. But at the end of his life, Moses, he gets to the edge of the promised land. This is going to be so tough because God says to him, listen, Moses, you can look, but you can't touch. Moses is like, I'm Moses. What do you mean I don't get to enjoy this? Like, I don't understand that. And at this point for Moses, he's at the end of his life. And anytime we're at the end of our lives, there's always some perspective that we have on time. And Moses at this point has lived long enough. And so in the 90th Psalm, he gives us his perspective. And what he says here, I think, gives us the context for every decision we make, especially when it relates to our time and our schedules. In fact, you don't even have to be a Christian or a religious person. You don't even have to believe that Moses was a historical figure for this, what Moses says here, for it to make a difference in your life. And this is what Moses says in Psalms 90. He says, Lord, through all the generations you have been our home. And essentially what he's trying to say is like, for all the generations of us as a Jewish people, God, we've kind of lived within the context of who you are. He says, before the mountains were born, before you gave birth to the earth and the world, from the beginning to the end, he says, you are God. He says, God, you're from the beginning to the end. You're in a way, you're everlasting to everlasting. And then somewhere in between everlasting to everlasting, and Moses says, there's me. There's us, the nation of Israel. You're here, God, and we're here in the middle. And then he says, you turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. And it's Moses' way of saying that God, you control the beginning and the ends. That God, you control, you have input into the days of our lives, but I don't even know if we understand what that means. That, maybe, does that mean that God kills people? That God actually causes things like that? Does God know how many days we're going to live? Does God decide how many days that we're going to live? But here's, I don't exactly know, but here's what Moses said, and here's what's important in this, is that for most of you, and this is whether you recognize it or not, whether you can even explain it or not, because I don't think any of us can, but most of us believe that God has something to do with the length of our lives. And let me prove it to you. If you found out tomorrow that you had a terminal disease, would you pray? Tomorrow, if you got a phone call and you found out someone you loved had a terminal disease, just got diagnosed, would you pray? And, right, I know the answer to that. And it doesn't matter that it maybe has been forever since you've prayed. There's something in all of us that believes that God has something to do with the number of the days of our lives. So Moses says, for you, God, 1,000 years are as a passing day, as brief as a few night hours. And this is Moses' way of saying, hey, God, you know how I keep saying, wow, it's crazy how quickly the years are flying by in my life. Imagine how they must be for you, God. God, as I get older, the years just kind of fly by. It's so quick. Wow, God, you're God. You're everlasting to everlasting. Imagine how time has to fly for you. God, for you, like 1,000 years is 3 or 4 hours, which means, God, to you, God, how long does my life look? God, my life, which is such a big deal to me, how long does my life look within the context of 1,000 years, when 1,000 years to you is 3 or 4 hours? He says next, you sweep people away like dreams that disappear. They are like grass that springs up in the morning. In the morning it blooms and flourishes, but by evening it is dry and withered. Moses says this, he says, listen, God, from your perspective, our long years that we live here on earth, our entire lives that we get so worked up about, from your perspective, God, it must be like grass that pops up in the morning, but then it's dead by evening. It says in verse 10, 70 years are given to us. Some even live to 80, but even the best years are filled with pain and trouble. And Moses, I think he'd say, hey, let me tell you about my pain, right? Every day, for 40 years, every day was just like the last one. And I thought, well, this is it. This is my life. I'm a shepherd. And then things picked up and God was using me to deliver my people. But that didn't last long because all of a sudden I found myself leading this complaining group, this nation of babies through the desert for 40 years. We were just walking around in a circle and they did nothing but complain. And then Moses is like, I get to the edge of the promised land and God says, you can look, but you can't touch. Now, what was your story about pain and trouble? Moses, you win, right? Your story's way worse than mine. But look what he says next. He says, soon they disappear and we fly away. His point is that time and life, they pass quickly. He says, who can comprehend the power of your anger? God, if only we could understand, if only we could comprehend your anger, because your wrath is awesome as the fear you deserved. And Moses, when he says that, he means that, God, if we could see God, you as you are, God, we would give you the fear and the respect and the reverence you deserve. Because God, you're everlasting to everlasting. And I'm here just right in the middle. I'm like a piece of grass here today and gone tomorrow. My life is just going by so fast. But if I think it's going by so fast, God, I realize that my life is just a fraction to you. I mean, God, 3 hours is like 1,000 years. And so Moses, he pauses here and he says, wow, God, if we could just see you as you are, if we could just see you as you are, then when it comes to the time in my life, in our lives, God, then we would give you the fear and the respect and the reverence that you're due. That me and this, I have this tiny little itty-bitty slice of time that I'm supposed to do something with. And God, wouldn't the rational, logical, correct thing to do be that somehow in my little tiny blip of existence, that God, that I would give you the glory that you're due. And God, that I would give you the honor and respect that you're due. And maybe another way to say it would be this, that if we could see God as he is, then we'd be more careful with the time that we've been allotted. That if we see God, if we were to see God as he is, and how this life and what he's given to us, all that we have. I mean, if he's everlasting to everlasting, and we're here today and gone tomorrow, that if we were actually to kind of picture it that way, then we would probably rethink what we do with the gift of limited time that we've been given. But we don't think like that. Because most of us, most of the time, think about our lives within the context of our lives. But most of us would say, well, that's not 100% accurate. Because actually the context of your life is everlasting to everlasting. And because that's the context of your life, it's good to pause every once in a while and contemplate and think about, you know what? Life is really short. Because if you were to think and pause about how short life is within the context of everlasting to everlasting, if you were to truly do that, it would impact what you do with the time that you do have and everything you're trying to cram into your schedule. Now, Moses, he gets, I guess you can just call it the application part of what he was saying. He says this. He says, teach us to realize the brevity of life. Teach us to realize the brevity of life. Why? Because we don't naturally do this. Teach us to realize the brevity of life. Teach us to live, other versions use, teach us to live as if our days are numbered. Think about the fact that life is short. And we just don't think that way very often. I mean, for Jen and I, we try to go on walks together on a regular basis. Yes, for the exercise, but also to have just some undistracted time together where we can walk and talk about, the kids, talk about things we want to do, things that have us worried, things that have us excited, the things that we need to take care of, some things that maybe we forgot to do. And you know what's interesting? In those conversations, we spend our time and we talk about our time as if we're going to live forever. That we spend our time as if we're always going to have our kids around us. We spend our time and talk about our time as if we're always going to have the jobs that we have. We spend our time and talk about our times as if we're always going to have our parents around us. We spend our time and talk about our time as if our time is, as if it's unlimited. Now, we know it's not, right? But in terms of how we schedule and how we cram and how we prioritize, we live as if our days are not numbered. We live as if life isn't brief. And Moses says, that's a huge mistake. He says, you actually need to learn to number your days. Why? He says, so that we may grow in wisdom. He's saying, teach us to realize, teach us to recognize that life is short, that our days are numbered, because when we are willing to do that, we will gain wisdom as to how we're to schedule and prioritize our time. We'll gain wisdom as to what we should leave in and take out of our schedules of our time, our day-to-day stuff, because this, you know this. If we live life like it's not brief, if you live your days like they're not numbered, you will continue to fill your days with things that later on you might look back and wish you had not filled your days with those things. But as Moses is trying to tell us, that when we pause and think about and realize that, man, when it comes down to it, life is short. When it comes down to it, our days are numbered. That when we actually pause to do that, we immediately gain wisdom. We immediately gain perspective and say, you know what, hold on a second. That I can't spend my time doing that. And I actually need to spend more time doing this. Wait a minute. I can't waste the short life I have spending my precious days on that. In fact, I don't need to spend any time doing that. Instead, I need to spend more time doing this. I need to spend more time with them. I need to spend more time doing things with them or with him or with her. I need to start spending time doing this and stop spending time doing that. I didn't see it before. But now that I took a second, took a moment, took some time, I paused, I see it. That the time is short. That my days are numbered. And for me, it really puts things into perspective. It's clear. With the time that I do have, I need less of this and more of that. And maybe a way to put it is this: that remembering our time is limited provides us with wisdom to know how to spend our limited time. Remembering our time is limited provides us with wisdom to know how to spend our limited time. There was an Australian nurse that worked in hospice. Her name was Bronnie Ware. And for many years, later on in her career, she would spend time with people that had about 12 weeks to live. That was kind of where she wound up in her career. And so in that time, spending those 12 weeks with those individuals, she began to ask them some questions about their lives. She wrote down some of her observations. She actually wrote a book. It's called the Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And so she'd asked these individuals that had 12 weeks to live, she says, well, tell me what your regrets are. And it was in those responses that she heard a pattern, and so she wrote these things down. And so the top 2 regrets, I'll give you number 1 in a second, but the second regret was that I wished I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Now, nothing new, right? Probably none of us would be surprised by that, but this is what she said. She said, this came from every male patient I nursed. They missed their children's youth and missed their partner's companionship. She says that women also spoke of this regret, but as most were from an older generation, many of the female patients had not been breadwinners. All of the men I nursed deeply regretting spending so much time of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. Do you know what that means? Especially for us men. It means that if we don't learn to number our days, we will misspend our time and we will misspend our lives when it could have been an avoidable thing. Because when you think about all the time, when you think that you have all the time in the world with your kids, and we think that you have all the time in the world with your spouse, and then you suddenly realize, you know what? I don't have all the time in the world. You can't go back. Right? You only get to be 20 once. You only get to be 30 once. You only get to be 40 a couple times, right? But see, here's the thing. These people that realize just how brief their lives are, they only realize that because they have a few days left. And now they have wisdom. Now they're at a place where I can't do anything about it. Now, the number 1 regret, and listen, if you're a teenager, college student, grad student, please listen to this. The number 1 regret was I wish I had the courage to live a life true of myself, not the life others expected of me. And this is what she said. She says, this was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it's easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people have not honored even a half of their dreams and had to die knowing it was due to choices they had made or not made. To me, this is the most powerful part. Health brings us a freedom very few realize until they no longer have it. See, here's the wisdom from people that now have the perspective that they've been forced in some way to think about the time that they have left, to think about how short their lives are. That's the wisdom. Those are their regrets. And so my question is what do you do with that? What do you do with that when you look at your current schedule? And what do you do with that when you look at your current pace? Now, here's the thing, and you might be feeling this just like I do a little bit, that you might push back on this a little bit. And I want you to know, I'm not any different from you. But maybe this has kind of been in the back of your head, kind of running as we've been talking about this, that, well, if I don't do as much as I possibly can, then I might not ever make it. Right? If I don't do as much as I possibly can, then I might not make it. And I don't know what it is for you. I'm sure you've got your own ideas that you define as it. But you know what the people who were asked their greatest regrets as they were dying would say? They would say, you better make sure you chose the right it. Because I could. We could spend our whole life trying to make it. And then get to the end and realize that it was the wrong it. Like, you had better know what it is if you're going to cram your life and cram your schedule so full of things just so that you can make it and get there. And so Moses' prayer is this: God, teach us. God, teach us to realize the brevity of life. Why? So that we might grow in wisdom. And let me just go back to the question I asked at the beginning. The pace. When you think about the pace that you're running at right now, is it sustainable? Is it sustainable? And you had better make sure that the pace is the right pace for you, for your family, and you would better make sure that the pace that you're running at right now is leading you to the right it. And the it that really matters. Would you bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, God, I just pray that your Spirit would in some ways just convict. God, that maybe that today is an eye-opener for some, that maybe today is just a reminder for others. But God, I pray that whatever it is that we're running for and running with and cramming into our schedules, God, I pray that whatever it is, that we would do so with the mindset that life is short. And you've called us to do something with the life that you've given us. And so, God, I pray that you would give us then the wisdom of what to do, when to do it, how busy we need to be, what our priorities should be, what we should be focused on and not focused on. God, I pray that you would do a work in our hearts and our minds in a way that we would pause and we would think and realize that life is short. And you've called us to some very specific things. So God, just work in our hearts. God, show us. God, we love you, and we give you praise. Amen. Let me do something real quick before you leave. In your seats was just a little card like this. This is just something for you. Maybe it's your quiet time this week. Maybe it's something you do together as a family at some point this week. But on this card is just something to allow you to think about your schedule. And so remembering our time is limited provides us with the wisdom to know how to spend our limited time. And so maybe you kind of pause and think, you know what? Life is brief. Life is, my days are numbered. And if that's the case, what would you add to your schedule? What are the important things that you wished you had time for? Knowing that life is brief, knowing that your days are numbered, what do you need to add to your schedule? Knowing that life is short, what do you need to remove from your schedule? Knowing that life is brief, that your days are numbered, what do you need to do more of, and what do you need to do less of? And I would just challenge you, take some time this week to pause, as Moses kind of instructed us, to give us some time so God can actually teach us to realize, okay, I've only got this much time. God's everlasting to everlasting, and I'm right here in the middle, and it's just like here today and gone tomorrow. And what do I need to do in my life of my family, to make sure that I make the most of the time that I've been given? So I just encourage you, take that home, put it in a place maybe you're going to see it, spend some time in it, actually think through all those things, and we just challenge you. I think an important thing for all of us to do. I can't thank you enough for being here this morning and joining us here in this series. I hope you'll join us as we continue throughout the month of November, taking a reset in some of the important areas of our lives. If you're watching online, and this is really for everybody, immediately following the service, we have next steps. For those that are online, you can stick around, keep watching, and that next steps class will be there right for you virtually. But for all of you that maybe you want to discover what your next step here is at Watermark and find out more about who we are, I invite you to stick around right over here on my right. I'll meet you down here. We have a short class just to talk about, hey, here's how you can get plugged in. This is who we are as Watermark. We'd love to have you stick around. But my challenge then to all of us is that we would understand that life is brief and we'd allow that to allow us to leave a lasting mark. Have a great week. You're dismissed. Well, we are so glad that you decided to join us for Next Steps. My name's Larry Wentworth. I'm the lead pastor here at Watermark, and what we hope happens in the next few moments in this Next Steps class is that you discover a little bit about who we are, as well as find your next steps here at Watermark. Now, one of the important things at Watermark is that we want to be a people that are marked by His presence. That this has to be the thing, one of the defining characteristics of our lives and of our church. It's this idea that God's Holy Spirit, as believers, it's living in us. That then it gets seen in how we love, in how we give and how we care for others. Because you know what a watermark is? A watermark is found on higher denominations of money in order to prevent fakes, to prevent counterfeits. And so we must have the watermark of God's presence on our lives. We're also marked for each other. We were not created to do this life alone, that you need people around you that are encouraging you. Even as the writer of Hebrews puts it, says that you need people around you to spur you on towards love and good deeds. People that are praying for you, they are walking with you, that they're journeying this life with you. And we believe that the best environment for that is within the environment of groups. Now, groups run throughout the year. We have groups for men, women, couples, even our students as well. And those groups allow you to grow. They almost activate your faith. And so we know how important it is to be connected to a group. And so if you're interested in being a part of a group, you can find a listing of all those groups within the Church Center app as well as on our website. And here's, to me, maybe the most important characteristic of all. As part of Watermark, we know that we are marked to leave a lasting mark. See, a watermark is a lasting impression. It's the continual presence of water at a certain level. It leaves a mark long after it's done. And our hope, because we have lived faithfully as God's people, that long after we've gone, is that we would have made an impact for God's kingdom that would be seen for generations to come. So we do this as a church through our school partnerships, other partnerships within our city and other community organizations, because we believe that we're called to the people around us outside these church walls. And so what that means is that we know that we're called to do this as individuals, that we're called to leave a lasting mark for God's kingdom on the lives of others, the people that we work with, the people in our neighborhood, our community, even your own family, to leave a mark, a watermark that will be seen for generations to come. And so your next step here at Watermark is a couple things. One, again, we'd love you to get connected to a group, but also to find a place to leave a lasting impression, to leave a lasting mark. So the Church Center app allows you to see all that stuff. Again, there's a listing of groups there. Also, you can find out how to volunteer, how to take those next steps in that area as well. So again, I can't thank you enough for joining us for Next Steps at Watermark. And so we challenge you to now go and leave a lasting mark.
Why don't you just praise him? Clap your hands. Lift your voice. Shout unto God with a voice of triumph. I know we're in a chapel. We've got acoustic guitars. But come on. Jesus!
Can't get enough. No, I can't get enough of your amazing love. Jesus, I can't get enough. I can't walk away. I can't walk away, for I have seen your face, and I can't walk away. Jesus, there is nothing like your love. No, no, no. I love your presence, Jesus. Everything is made new right here with you. Can't get enough. Oh, I can't get enough. Jesus, I can't get enough. You're amazing, Lord. Of your amazing love. Yeah. Jesus, I can't get enough. Every voice I can't walk away. I can't walk away. No, I can't walk away. For I have seen your face, face of love. Oh, and I can't walk away. Oh, want to be where you are. Oh, and I just want to be where you are. Oh, and I just want to be near your heart. There is nothing like your love. No, yeah. Jesus, there is nothing like your love. Sing it again. Wanna be where you are, yeah. And I just wanna be where you are. Near your heart. And I just wanna be near your heart, yeah. There is nothing like your love. Jesus, there is nothing like your love. Yeah. Just lift your voice, lift up a song of worship. Oh, lift up a melody of worship to Jesus right now. He loves to hear the song on our lips. Yeah. Your children singing, oh, oh, singing, oh, singing, oh, Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I love you. Your children singing, holy, oh, you alone are holy, yeah. And you made me to be holy, like you're holy, Jesus. Set us apart for your affection, God. Sing holy, holy, yeah. Holy, this night.